Well, this week has been declared a national week of protest to support the early childhood development sector. The COVID-19 People's Coalition is pleading with the Social Development Department to direct more money to workers in the sector. The coalition's Rehad Desai joining us this morning to explain what it is they want. Rehad, a very good morning and thanks so much for your time. So a national week of action. What is your issue when it comes to the support of ECDs? And we understand the amount of 1.3 billion is what you're most concerned about, and what will happen with that money?
We've got 30,000 early childhood development centres around the country. Many of them have gone into acute crisis because parents haven't been able to afford the fees during lockdown, which many of them have asked to continue to pay. So thousands upon thousands are now on the verge of closing because they haven't been able to meet their overheads. And in response, the Minister of Social Development, Lindiwe Zulu, has, in a sort of rather commandist fashion, top-down fashion, decided to spend the 1.3 billion rand that's allocated to help these centres to employ 36,000 youths to monitor COVID compliance regulations. There'll be nothing to monitor. I mean, we're looking at a sector that employs 1 million people. These are led often by women, working class women, who are holding the ship together to provide an incredibly important service, an essential service in our view. And instead of supporting and helping these centres with their compliance and so on, through appointing, the right people, the qualified people, we've got a situation where it's a very top-down autocratic thing for a crumbling service.
Rehad, I get the feeling that you think this money is intended for something more sinister. What exactly are your concerns? Let's just lay it out. Do you think that there's some sort of cover-up for corruption when it comes to this amount of money?
I think it's too early to talk about corruption. Obviously, there's the huge opportunities present themselves for corrupt politicians and councillors and state officials and so on. But really, no, I think this is a mindset that's at play. That rather than help the people and bail the people out so our creches, our centres can survive, they've come in to say, well, let's try and create some jobs and maybe some political support for ourselves among the youth. When we've got tens of thousands of workers who need employment, where we can create formal long-term employment for a critical service to help our young people. We all know how important these centres are for our children to provide that stimulation and preparation for school. Many of which don't get that at home in any shape or form. Yeah. We know our children are in bad shape because they've been forced to stay at home and haven't had the supervision and the educational input and so on to allow them to thrive. So we can only think this is poor top-down planning with no understanding of actually what's happening on the ground. How hard this has hit our economy. We know we've lost 3 million jobs, most of those to women.
Rehad, is your issue that it's this amount of money that's being used to monitor compliance, or that this has to be done at all? Because there could be the argument on the other side is that while we're worried about children's safety, we're worried about classes resuming and childcare resuming as well, that we need people to make sure that all protocols are in place, that all the hygiene and safety measures are in place as well. What exactly is the issue? Do you disagree that that is needed at the moment, or is the issue that that amount of money is needed for that, for those safety precautions or monitoring of them?
We've got many unregistered early childhood development centres, and they need support at this moment in time in order to put these measures in place. That's undoubted. But that, we could do that with a few hundred qualified monitors from the sector itself who understand the challenges that present themselves in this particular sector. And that would, wouldn't cost more than a million or two rand. The rest of the money needs to go into supporting these centres so that they can have long-term viability. We know that this isn't probably going to be the first wave that we face, and that we're going to be facing other situations where, schools will have to close, reopen and so on. That's the reality going forward over the next year or two. And not to provide any support at this stage is catastrophic for the sector. It's catastrophic for the welfare of our children. And that's why C19 are fully behind the week of protest, which has began yesterday.
So what's happening in this week, Rehad? I mean, it started yesterday. Give us some idea of what you're actually doing in this week.
Well, scores of, hundreds, not thousands of workers from these centres will be picketing at various spots around the country, trying to garner support. To date, we've garnered 10,000 signatures, which has been sent to the Minister to appeal to her to reconsider her decision in this regard. That has come with no response, a complete blinder. We're told that the stimulus package is really there for inclusive development. That means working closely with stakeholders. That means co-determining our future. But we've had a complete blank wall from the Minister to date. And that's why the creche workers, the centre workers, have decided this week is a week that they're going to be out in the streets and picketing, but using all the masks and sanitation and physical distancing that's required by the regulations.
Thanks so much for your time, Rehad Desai. He's from the COVID-19 People's Coalition, and they are in the midst of that week-long national protest there when it comes to ECD centres. They're protesting against the money that's been allocated by Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu, employing 36,000 youth compliance monitors in ECD. They say the money could be put to better use.